There are moments when love asks for everything and still expects nothing in return. This is the story of a mother whose greatest act of love came at the very moment she believed her own life was about to end. My name is Evelyn, and at 68 years old, I have learned that a mother's heart can survive almost anything. But it wasn't always easy. The day my husband died, the world became painfully quiet. Our little home suddenly felt too large, and my tiny son was too young to understand why his father would never walk through the door again. Deep breath. I was terrified. I had no savings, no family nearby, and no idea how I would raise him alone. Yet every night, when I watched him sleeping peacefully beside me, fear slowly gave way to determination. I made a silent promise that no matter how difficult life became, he would never feel abandoned. I scrubbed laundry until my hands cracked, cleaned strangers' homes, and skipped countless meals so there would always be enough food on his plate. Every sacrifice became worthwhile whenever his laughter filled our small house. Watching him grow stronger gave me strength to keep going. Years passed, and while my hair slowly turned gray, my love for him only grew deeper. I believed the hardest days were behind us. I had no idea that the greatest test of our bond was still waiting just ahead. Time has a quiet way of changing everything. Before I realized it, the little boy who once reached for my hand had become a hard-working young man. Every evening, I waited by the window for the sound of his footsteps returning from the fields. Seeing him safe at home was enough to fill my heart with peace. I never dreamed of riches. His happiness was all I had ever wanted. Then one evening he smiled and said, "Mother, I've met someone. I want to marry her." For a brief moment, my heart hesitated. Soft sigh. I knew marriage would change our lives forever. Still, I smiled warmly and blessed him with all my heart. Love should never be chained by fear. When his bride entered our home, I welcomed her as if she were my own daughter. I showed her where everything was kept, offered to help her cook, and reminded her that this house belonged to her now as much as it did to us. But the warmth I offered was never returned. Her answers became shorter each day. She avoided sitting beside me. Whenever I tried to help, she quietly pulled away, as though my presence alone bothered her. Not wanting to cause trouble, I spoke less and less. I convinced myself she only needed time to adjust. What I didn't know was that silence can hide far more danger than angry words ever could, and soon, our peaceful home would become a place where trust began to fall apart. The distance between us grew so slowly that, at first, I hardly noticed it. Our home was still the same, yet it no longer felt peaceful. Every conversation seemed to end before it began, and every act of kindness was quietly pushed aside. One evening, my son returned home exhausted after a long day in the fields. Dust covered his clothes, and weariness filled his face. He sat down and called gently, "Could you bring me a glass of water?" Only silence answered him. After waiting a while, he spoke again. "Is dinner ready?" Still nothing. Curious, he stood and walked toward their room. I remained where I was, my heart beginning to race. Our small house carried every sound through its thin walls. Then I heard her sobbing. "Your mother can't stand me," she cried. "She calls me useless. She says I'll never be good enough for you. Every day she finds a new reason to humiliate me." Long pause. My breath caught in my chest. None of it was true. I had never spoken those words. I wanted to defend myself, but I couldn't bring myself to interrupt. My son answered quietly, trying to calm her. "She's getting older. Please, let's be patient with each other. This is her home too." But his gentle words only seemed to make her angrier. "There isn't even any dinner tonight," she snapped. "How could I cook when your mother keeps criticizing everything I do?" The room fell silent for a moment. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "You have to choose," she said coldly. "Either your mother stays or I do." That night, no one slept peacefully. My son remained awake, staring into the darkness. I lay on my mat with tears slipping silently onto my pillow, whispering one simple prayer. "Please don't let my child lose his way." I never imagined that by morning, his answer would be far more frightening than anything I had prayed against. Morning arrived, but the warmth of our home had disappeared. I heard them talking before the sun had fully risen. Their voices were low at first, but soon the silence broke. "Have you made your decision?" she asked. My son didn't answer. Then her voice turned colder than I had ever heard before. "If you truly love me, prove it. Take your mother to the hill. She's old. She won't live much longer anyway. Once she's gone, we can finally have our own life." Deep breath. Those words echoed through every corner of the house. I waited for my son to refuse. I waited for him to shout that she had gone too far. Instead, there was only silence. The rest of the day passed like a dream I couldn't wake from. He barely touched his food. He avoided my eyes whenever we crossed paths. His shoulders seemed heavy, as if he were carrying an invisible burden. Late that evening, he walked slowly into my room. "Mother," he whispered, his voice trembling, "would you come with me tomorrow? I want us to take a journey together." I looked into his eyes, and in that single moment, I understood the truth he couldn't say aloud. A mother recognizes the pain hidden behind her child's silence. My heart cracked, but I smiled gently. "Of course," I replied. "Wherever you lead, I'll follow." The next morning, he helped me onto his back. The narrow path climbed higher and higher, winding through rocks and old trees. Cool wind brushed against my face as I held onto his shoulders. With every step, memories returned. I remembered carrying him when he was too small to walk. I remembered staying awake through nights of fever, praying he would survive. I remembered every sacrifice that had shaped his life. If this was where my own journey would end, I held no anger. Only one quiet hope remained inside my heart, that somehow, before it was too late, my son would remember the love that had carried him long before he was strong enough to carry me. And when we finally reached the top of the hill, I knew the moment of truth had come. The wind swept across the hill, carrying a silence so deep it almost felt alive. My son gently lowered me onto the ground, but he couldn't meet my eyes. His hands trembled, and his breathing grew uneven. I looked at him for a long moment before speaking. "My son," I said softly, "I know why you brought me here." His entire body froze. Slowly, he lifted his head, his face pale with shock. You know," he whispered. I smiled, though my heart ached. A mother always knows when her child is hurting. Tears filled his eyes. He tried to speak, but no words came. I reached for his hand. "When the time comes," I continued gently, "don't worry about me. Just promise me one thing. Be careful near the edge. Hold on to that tree branch so you don't lose your footing." Long pause. He stared at me as if he had never truly seen me before. Then, without warning, he collapsed to his knees. "No," he cried. "I was ready to take your life, and you're still thinking about mine." His voice broke beneath the weight of unbearable guilt. "I've failed you," he sobbed. "After everything you sacrificed, after every night you stayed awake for me, I almost became the reason your life would end." I gently placed my hand on his shoulder. "My child," I whispered, "love doesn't disappear because someone makes a terrible mistake. A mother's heart keeps loving, even when it's broken." For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he stood, wiped away his tears, and carefully lifted me onto his back once more. But this time, he wasn't walking toward death. He was carrying me safely home. When we returned, he faced his wife with quiet determination. He told her she could no longer remain in a home built on cruelty and lies. She left without another word. I never celebrated her departure. I never spoke against her. Instead, I silently thanked God for giving my son the courage to remember who he truly was. Now our home is peaceful again. My son cares for me with the same devotion I once gave him, and every shared meal reminds us that love is strongest when it is rooted in gratitude, not selfishness. If this story leaves you with one lesson, let it be this. Never forget the hands that lifted you before you could stand on your own. A mother's love asks for nothing in return, yet it has the power to change a heart, rescue a soul, and heal a family.